Hope everyone's Ignites conference is going on well. Thank you for coming out to my session. This is Achieve More in Less Time using the new SQL PowerShell module. I did a session by the exact same name last year at Ignite, and this session is basically everything that's new that has been added to the SQL Server PowerShell module since last year. I'll do a little bit of recapping of some cool features, but mostly I'm showing you what the new stuff is out there, and also asking for you to get involved in giving feedback to Microsoft. I'm Aaron Nelson. I'm a Microsoft MVP for the data platform. My handle on Twitter is SQL Variant. My email address is aaron@sqlvariant.com so that you can email me and get that copy of the cheat sheet I promised. I'm the leader of the PowerShell virtual group of PASS. You can find us at powershell.pass.org. We hold webcasts, usually monthly. We've been not so good about it lately, but we're getting back into the swing of things. And in the meantime, you can go to sqlps.io/video, and that'll take you over to our YouTube channel. It has over 30 video recordings from previous webcasts. All right, so let's get into it. First, we'll talk about where to get the PowerShell module for SQL Server. You go to PowerShell Gallery, and you can go to PowerShellGallery.com to take a look at it. But to install it, you just open up PowerShell to do it. Cool thing, the SQL Server module only came out a little over a year ago, and the latest version of it has had over 200,000 downloads in the last 3 months, which is pretty cool. It's a lot of people using SQL Server PowerShell, and want to get more people to know about it, and especially get more people giving feedback to the team of what needs to be improved and what needs to be added to the product next. If you're working with SQL Server Core Engine, SSAS, or SSIS, all of those things are inside that core SQL Server module. If you're working with reporting services, SSRS, or Power BI Report Server, that's when you're going to want to go ahead and download the Reporting Services Tools module. It's a separate module. How many of you are already working with the SQL Server module? A few of you? All right. Has anyone ever worked with the old SQL PS module, the predecessor? Only a handful. Good. Okay. Yeah, it was painful. All right. So with SQL, I believe it was SSMS 16.3, they started shipping the SQL Server module, and then they put it up in the gallery. So at this point, if you want to install it, you open up whatever your favorite PowerShell editor is, run install module, -name SQL Server, and that'll go ahead and pull it down for you. You can do it without running as administrator, and it will go ahead and pull it down, but it's better to go ahead and right-click, run as administrator, and download it, because especially like if you're on a jump box, there are some version issues that could happen if multiple users are trying to use the SQL Server module on that same machine. Not mandatory, but makes things easier. There will be an update coming out soon. I was talking to the engineer about that earlier this morning. When that comes out, what you'll want to run is the update module commandlet, pass in SQL Server. And if you just want to check and see if it's ready yet, all you have to do is add this what if. If the what if comes back and just says nothing, that means you're up to date. If it comes back and says something, it'll be telling you that you need to update to the next version, and there you go. You may have to use the -force parameter, and depending on if you had one of the versions of SSMS 16 installed, you may even have to use the allow clobber, but those are just some quick notes on that. How many of you have downloaded a module from the PowerShell gallery before? About a third or half. Okay, great. So after you download that, you can search around in the SQL Server module and look for commands that might be useful to you. One way you can do that is by running the command get command. In PowerShell, we always have this verb-noun syntax for naming the commands. And so you can say on the noun portion, so just over here where command is, only look for commands that contain the word job somewhere in there, and only in the noun section. And that'll give you back all the commandlets that only have job somewhere in their name. If you want to just take a look at everything and have it be able to be sortable and filterable, use pipe it to out grid view commandlet. That's my favorite commandlet in all of PowerShell. And very, very useful. I'll see if we can squeeze in a demo for that real quick. I'm terrified of having this water over here, but I need it. All right, so again, like I said, from an elevated shell, so meaning right-click and run as administrator up here. That's the best way to go ahead and install the module. And once you've got it installed, you can go ahead and run import module, like I already have down here. And let's go on to the next thing. Taking a look at, the commands. If we want to look at those commands that contain the word job, like I said, just put the stars around it. There you go. You see that we've got 4 commandlets for working with SQL Agent Jobs. Again, to be able to see a sortable and filterable list, pipe it to out grid view, and it gives you a nice, easy way to look at these things. And so, for example, if you wanted to look for only commandlets that had availability group, just start typing it, and you'll see that it filtered it down to only commandlets that have availability group somewhere in their name. All right, so that'll get you started, hopefully. Also, there's get help that you can use with any of those commandlets, and if you use the full, it'll give you examples of how to use it and things like that as well. Right. So what is new in the SQL Server module? Well, for starters, there's an update to the SQL registration. So how many of you are familiar with registered servers or central management server? Just a couple? How many of you have like more than 5 SQL servers in your organization? A lot of people? Yeah, you should love registered servers then. Use registered servers to keep track of all your servers, dev, QA, production. You can put them in subfolders to separate them. I use it all the time. Not just with PowerShell, but just to keep my whole set of servers. I've got over 25 instances, and so to keep them all organized, I use SQL registration, registered servers or CMS all the time. So now we can use registered servers and get the registered servers that we have for SSAS, IS, and RS as well. Another improvement is the get SQL instance commandlet. It finally really works the way we expect it to. So now we can use it for our on-premises SQL servers. They fixed the SQL Server provider for SSIS. That was pretty huge. For a while there, it just didn't even work. It was just caught up in an update cycle and got off cycle, and it was basically broken for a couple builds. So that's all built in, working, great to go. They also put in a lot of support for .NET Core, PowerShell 6. It's not 100% complete, but it's very far along the way. So you've already got that in there. Let me go ahead and switch to a demo on this one. So just to show you again in the provider, one of the things I can do is I can go, after I've imported the module, it creates SQL Server as a drive on my machine, essentially, a PS drive, so I can take a look at it. And so I can go and take a look at SQL here. I can look at SSIS. I can look at analysis services. And again, I can use SQL registrations or registered servers. When I take a look under registered servers, I now have this new option of taking a look under analysis services, and then I would see any analysis services instances that I've gone ahead and registered. If I want to take a look under my just traditional SQL servers, I can go ahead and run this, and it will give me this listing of all of these instances. Now, obviously, I only have 2 here, but at work, I've got over 25, and this is very helpful to me because it allows me to run one command against all 25, or maybe 5 or 7, or how many ever instances that I want. One of the other features that kind of ties in with that is the fact that just after Ignite last year, they went ahead and added a Start PowerShell option right here. I'll just zoom in on that real quick. So there's a Start PowerShell that's available here so that you can kick off PowerShell from right there from your registered servers. And so if you've got layered folders of, this data center, the production servers versus the dev servers. You can drill right into it, open that up, and you can start running a PowerShell command from right there. All right. 10 minutes, wow. All right. I'm going to go ahead and speed on through. I think you get the point. I love registered servers. All right, so get SQL instance. This is one that I've been asking for years, and it's finally here. And if you do a get SQL instance, give it a name, it'll pull it back for you. You can then put this into a variable like I'm doing down here later in the script, or you can then pipe it to another command and maybe get some properties out of it. So going back to registered servers, if I do a dir off of my registered servers like I was showing you a minute ago, I can go ahead and get the version information of all those just by running that commandlet. Or if I want to grab them and I want to find out more information and interrogate them, I can use the get SQL instance commandlet right here. And what I'm doing is I'm firing up a variable inside of PowerShell, and I'm taking that SQL Server instance and putting it into this variable. And to equate this for you, that is basically like I'm taking here the top node of SSMS, and I'm taking all the information about that. So if you think of going right-click and seeing properties of that instance, I'm taking all that information and I'm putting it into the PowerShell variable, and then I can interrogate that. So very quickly, here are some things that you can do with that. Once I put it into here, I'm then able to go ahead and pull in the configuration properties out of it. So for example, if I just wanted to check into the max memory that the server has or one of the other settings that it has based on, oops, got to run both of them. Anything that's in SP configure, right? Anything that's in there, I can come and take a look at what that setting is, and I can see a good report of what what this setting is called and what my value is, right? And that's okay, but why would I even bother with that if I can do that inside of T-SQL, right? Well, what I can do is I can look for a specific one, like maybe the max server, the max memory setting, and I can find out what that setting is, and I can find that out from all of my instances of SQL Server all at once and get all that information gathered back. And I can either present it to the screen, or I can go ahead and store it in a table, or I can filter it with the where commandlet. I've got lots of options. So I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on and show you one of the other features that is, it's a small feature, but it's a new one that I kind of stumbled on by accident and requested. So how many of you have ever had a problem with your SQL Server and you went and opened your error log and it just sat there and spun and spun and spun and spun and spun, and then that's when you found out your error log is something like over a gig? A couple months ago, I kid you not, happened to me, 4.7 gigabyte SQL Server error log, all right? There's a compliance reason why we have to keep our error logs. They just let them pile up forever, and that's how we ended up with that. But we can keep them, but keep them small at the same time. There's actually a feature built into the SQL engine that will actually roll it over as soon as it gets to a certain size threshold. And so I found out about that by talking to the engineers, and I said, hey, you know what? It'd be great if you would just put that into PowerShell. That would be a lot easier because this T-SQL for it is kind of thick, and it's hard to remember. And it's pretty easy to remember to set it on the set SQL error log commandlet. So if you put in a value here, now I put the comma in here, you can't actually use the comma, but in here I'm just trying to set my error log to roll over anytime it hits 100 megabytes. So when I go and I run this, it's going to go ahead and flip that setting for me. And as soon as my SQL error log gets to 100 megabytes, it's going to go ahead and roll it over for me automatically. So that's a time-saving feature. Might only save you, a couple minutes of work per year, except for if you hit that error log where it just takes you 30 minutes to load it, in which case it saved you a lot more. Now, the point in there is not just that you can roll over your error logs. you can make these requests to the SQL team, and you can get things added to the product that you think are a good idea. So let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and switch back. So I've been giving the SQL tools team my ideas for years, and I've also been helping collect and consolidate ideas from other community members, fellow customers like yourselves, and we need your help. The SQL Server team, they want to hear from you. Microsoft wants to hear from as many customers as possible. If you go to aka.ms/SQL feedback, that's the user voice site for SQL Server. It's got everything for SQL Server, and all the improvements for the SQL PowerShell tools are up there as well. So if you go to that site, and even if you don't have an idea you think you want to submit, you can go browse that and see what you think is a good idea, and then you can upvote it. And the more upvotes, the easier it is for them to prioritize that to get that idea into the product. Now, real quick, if you don't believe that this works, if you go to PowerShellGallery.com, search for the SQL Server module, go to that page, scroll down to the comments, you'll see that someone posted a problem with the module, and I don't have Zoom it on here. I'll just tell you, March 27th is when this guy posted his problem with the module. Mateo, he's the engineer from the Microsoft team that does the SQL PowerShell module. He responded the same day. He said he understands what it is, and this guy was lucky. He's like, I'm already working on a fix for that one. 2 days later, new version of the module rolls out, and it happens to solve that guy's problem. So you might not get that lucky and be able to have a problem solved for you in a couple days, but if you make it aware to them, they will see what they can do about it as quickly as they can. They can help you troubleshoot it. Sometimes it's just an issue on your end. Sometimes it leads to them coming back and actually saying, okay, go to the feedback site and list this, and I'll go ahead and start working on it as soon as you tell me what the link is to that feedback item. So this works, and I'm not just inviting you, I'm like saying, begging you, come on, please upvote these items so we can get them prioritized. Here's a list of other little fixes that have happened since the last year. PS credential support for invoke SQL command, the error log size one that I asked for, and there were several others. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to keep on going through. How many of you are familiar with the SQL vulnerability assessment in SQL Server now? Anyone else? Anyone else? It's a great feature. Definitely want to invite everyone to go ahead and have a look at it. I'll go ahead and switch over to my machine and show you that real quick. These are new commandlets that have been added this year. So this is a vulnerability scan that's already been run. These are best practices, things that you want to do with your database. To go ahead and what you do is you right-click tasks, vulnerability assessment, scan for vulnerabilities. It gives you a prompt, and then you go ahead and run your scan. Now, the problem is that you have to go and do that one database at a time, one by one by one. That is where PowerShell is amazing for this. So in this case, if you want to be able to run the assessment against all your databases, here's what the command would look like to run it for just one database. Pretty simple. The name of the commandlet, the name of your instance, and the database that you want to run it for, right? Very simple. We can take it further, run that same command, and either put it into a variable and then pipe it through, or just directly pipe it through to the next commandlet to export it. And when you export it, it goes into an Excel file. And I will go ahead and show you one of those Excel files real quick. Oh, looks like this. I was supposed to delete all these. And you can see the results of it over here. So let me just go ahead and this. So now this command that I'm about to show you, I've only got 2 instances of SQL Server here on my machine. However, it would run for how many ever servers that you have in your registered servers file. So if you had 35 in there, it would run all 35. And if you had 10 databases on each, that's 350 result files that you'd get. So real quick, just doing a dir on the registered servers here again, and then a for each one at a time, loop through those. Then I'm going to go to those servers, and then I'm going to ask for the databases, and I'm going to get the full list of databases back. But then in this case, I'm just to make the demo faster, I'm going to say if it's a system database, ignore it, don't run it. And then I'm going to run that commandlet, invoke this SQL vulnerability assessment scan. I'm going to pass in the parent. That means the server instance. I'm going to pass in the database name over here. It's going to run the scan, and then it's going to export it, and it's going to uniquely name it right here and drop it in my temp directory. So I'll go ahead and kick that off right now. And while we're waiting, I'll tell you, you can make adjustments to what it scans for. You can set a baseline, and you can change some of the things and tell it things to not worry about and things like that. If you want to learn more about the SQL vulnerability assessment scan, you want to talk to someone over at the Microsoft booth. I'm not an expert on it. I do use it, but I definitely wouldn't call myself an expert, and I know that they've got people way more expert than me over there at the booth. So here you see in the corner, one at a time, one database at a time, it's doing that scan, completing it, and putting the results out to here. Now that's great, but the results are in an Excel file. Obviously, it'd be better if they were maybe in a web page or maybe a table. That would probably be better. I'm sure that they're going to work on that in the future, but it did say in the release notes that this is the way of getting the results, improvements to that in the future. And if you really need it, go put an idea on the feedback site, get some of your coworkers to upvote it, and that might get it done faster. All right, oh man, I'm over time. I don't see the next speaker, so I'll do one last demo real quick. All right, and that is importing Excel files. Has anyone ever had to import Excel files at work or export? Maybe you put together a beautiful query, solved all these issues, all the information, and you said, okay, can you give it to me in an Excel file? And you're like, really? An Excel file? But you got to go do it. So there is a module out there on the PowerShell gallery. Now, this is not an official module. It is maintained by one of the community members, a guy named Doug Fink, PowerShell MVP. dfink on Twitter, if you have issues with it, he said, go ahead and tweet him. Right here, in this example, what I'm doing is I'm just taking some Excel files that I have on my hard drive, and I'm importing it to my SQL Server. I've got a database called blank, and I'm just going to go here, show you that it has no tables on it. All right, and very simple set of commands, and I'll post these up on my blog when I'm done today. Very simple. I can use the right SQL table data commandlet that came out 2 Ignites ago, and I can import that Excel file, pipe it over to the right SQL table data, and put all that data, including giving it column names and everything, and put that into my database. So if I go take a look here, you see I've got 2 new tables. If I do a select on here, oh, there it goes. You see all my column names got inherited from my Excel file. All the data got loaded. Beautiful thing. I showed a similar demo last year with CSV files, importing hundreds of CSV files. Same concept. So going the other direction, this module also allows you to export to a to an Excel file, and there's lots of other features that I haven't even found yet. So I definitely invite you to go explore it. Again, to install it, that module, install module, import Excel. And one last thing I wanted to cover with you, the SQL PowerShell community, people like myself, other SQL PowerShell experts from around the world have put together a module called DBA Tools. I've contributed at least 2 of the commands that are in there. I'm not sure exactly how many, but at least 2. There's over 400 of them. And while we're waiting for Microsoft to continue to put more features into the official module, definitely take a look at this. Install module, DBA Tools. Like I said, 400 commands, things like setting your SQL max memory, testing it, not just setting it, but also telling you what the value should be based on the OS RAM. Tons and tons of great things inside of there. And definitely invite you to go take a look at it. And then there is again, the way to install it. Thank you all very much for coming out and seeing this today. Like I said, email me and I will send you the cheat sheet that I promised. And please go into the app and leave feedback so that hopefully I can come out here and show you more new features next year. Thank you.